Join your host, Maddie Roche, as she brings you into a community of fee-only financial advisors who are successfully building profitable businesses that serve the next generation of clients. Learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your best life and help your clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello, and welcome to XYPN Radio. I'm Maddie Roche, your host. I'm pleased to have 4 incredible XYPN members on the show with me today: Alexandra Baig, Neil Mahoney, Todd Sensing, and Matthew Ricks. Each of these advisors have built a practice that either focuses entirely on or incorporates special needs planning, a unique niche that comes with a lot of considerations. As you'll hear today, there are unique components to working with the special needs community, from the soft skills required, like trust and sensitivity, to having serious technical expertise. Alex, Neil, Todd, and Matthew riff on their unique experience in approaching and working with this niche. Some adjust their payment structures and service models to better serve their clients, while others have developed different marketing techniques to reach this community. You'll hear the importance of staying up to date on this ever-evolving space, from state-specific requirements and Social Security considerations to how you need to be ready to speak the language of your clients. You're definitely going to learn a lot in today's episode, and I'm excited to bring it to you today. If you're interested in working with the special needs community, this show is going to be for you. Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. You can find any of the resources we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/299. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. It's the community of advisors we've all been looking for, that's there to provide support when we need it the most. Best of all, it's free. I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP. Without further ado, here's my interview with Alex, Neil, Matthew, and Todd. Hello, everyone. Welcome to XYPN Radio. It's so nice to see all of you this morning.
Hi. Hello.
Hello. All right. We are on the episode to talk all about special needs planning. We've got 4 awesome advisors, XYPN members on the show today, and I'd like to introduce each and every one. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. So I am Matt Ricks. I am an advisor in New York City. My own firm was approved by the lovely state of New York the day before Thanksgiving, so very new into the journey of my own firm here. Been an advisor 7 years, focusing on special needs the last 16 months or so, after getting into it through just normal course of business and finding out there's a lot of interest here and a lot of people need the assistance.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Neil Mahoney, how about you?
Yeah, so I've been in the financial planning industry for just over 20 years, and I started my firm, ABW Wealth Advisors, 8 years ago part-time while I was working for another wealth management firm, and then 3 years ago full-time. And it's in the last few years that I've had a specific focus on special needs planning. And I got interested in that because my own twin boys have significant developmental delays, and they were preemies and have cerebral palsy and autism. And so they're now in their 20s and have experienced a lot of planning issues just as being a father, and decided to use that experience to help other families and people with disabilities. I'm in the Salt Lake City area, spent some time in the Atlanta area as well. Married, 3 kids, and enjoying my business and enjoying the focus on special needs.
Awesome. And we'll dive a lot more into each of your firms as the show progresses. Alex, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Alexandra Baig, and in addition to having a background in finance, I also spent about 7 years running a social service agency, community living for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And as a result of that, when I did get into personal financial planning, I designed my firm to focus on people with special needs and their families. And I am in the Chicago area in the near southwest suburbs.
Awesome. Thank you. And Todd, how about you?
Hi, I'm Todd Sensing. I'm with Family Best. I'm in Destin, Florida. And I started the firm, I guess, in 2016. I didn't really launch until 2017 because I was special needs niche and I spent a year kind of just working on that. And so, yeah, and I've been, I guess, in business since 2017, focusing on special needs. I have two children with autism, 18 and 19. And so that's kind of what piqued my interest. I was doing planning for them and just saw the landscape of what was going on. So I figured that was something that meant a lot to me. And I knew that there were people out there that, needed someone that would take care of them in a proper way. So that's kind of why we decided to start Family Best.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Neil, I'd love to ask you to explain to the listeners, when you think about special needs planning, what does that really mean to you?
The first thing is there's take a family who has a loved one, a child, say, with disabilities or special needs, who may not be able to be independent fully. And when those natural caregivers are no longer able to take care of that person, there needs to be support and resources. And there's a social support system, with Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare built out there, but those benefits are often tied to assets and income. So special needs planning at its core is about helping people become or stay qualified for those government benefits that will help support them in their living expenses and medical care. So that's the technical aspect to it. On a bigger picture, when I think of financial planning for special needs families, I think just that, special needs families are families like everyone else and need all the basics, need retirement planning, investment planning, and so helping them to thrive financially and to kind of remove some of the financial stress is helpful for their well-being.
Yeah. Alex, anything to add to that?
I agree with everything that Neil said, but just to say that the starting point for financial planning for a person with special needs is the same as the starting point for a financial plan for anybody, which is really to take into account what that person wants in their life, what their desired adult life looks like. But because people with disabilities need some additional support to have the same things in life that the rest of us do, it then has the added complexity of looking for ways that that support can be funded, which includes, as Neil said, taking available government benefits, maximizing those, and then plugging in family resources and even resources from the person's own work income to make that a reality.
Todd, what are your thoughts around what special needs planning really is to you?
Well, I agree with them on all of those statements, really. And for me, it's always, with every family, it's always going to be family centric. So everyone's included. It doesn't mean, it's not just special. I mean, I don't focus just on the person with special needs, of course, but that's just a very integral part. And that's more complicated. And there's much more moving parts to their life. So that's why that focus is kind of necessary. But in general, it's very similar to any other planning that you would do, with there's just another layer of expertise that needs to be there for the special needs portion, and then integrating that with everything else. But then it's, resource planning, life planning, legal planning, financial planning. There's just so many things that can go into that, and they all have to kind of speak to each other. So, and then speaking the language, and I think a lot of us that get into this come from places where we have either family or loved ones or a relationship with someone that has special needs. And so there's a language that we speak because we've been there, done that kind of thing, that makes it a little easier for us to have conversations with people. And so I think that's, that kind of drives, my need to, or my desire to be helpful in this area.
Matt, I'm interested in your experience coming into this more recently than maybe the other three, in terms of just having recently started your firm. Could you talk a little bit about how you developed an interest in a specialty in this?
Sure. So mine was more through the natural course of business. Came across a handful of cases where it was generally a parent with a child who had a disability or special need. So working on those, and then, I'm active in some pro bono efforts. So was doing some work with Sydney. It's an organization here in New York that focuses on independent living for the disabled community. So through that, got exposure to it, got experience with it, I found, Todd mentioned that extra layer of expertise and all the, Neil and Alex did a great job of kind of spelling out the technicalities to, what the planning involves. And that extra layer appealed to me, stimulated me, academically, as well as, you go and you look at, okay, how many planners outwardly market or focus on this area? And there's not a lot compared to those that maybe focus on divorce or startups or, stock plans. So I say, okay, there's a need here. There's an opportunity here to better serve and better help. That's why I got into this business. So when I decided to start my own firm, I said, hey, this is kind of a no-brainer for me, working with this community, helping serve this community, make that part of my mission and to do so.
Thank you. Alex, I'd be interested in what is available if we take kind of financial planners out of the picture, what is available to the special needs community to assist with finances?
Well, that's a question that varies a lot from state to state and from area to area. So there are government benefits, but those also vary from location to location. So nationally, Social Security has benefits that are open to people with disabilities if they qualify. So for persons with disabilities who have a work record, those people become eligible for Social Security disability based on work credits, the same way that any of us could. For people with disabilities who do not have a work record, they may become eligible for supplemental security income, which does not require a work history, or they may, if their disability started before the age of 22, become eligible for a benefit based on their parents' work records. So those Social Security benefits are universal across the country, although some states do have additional amounts they offer on top of the SSI part. But other supports, sort of daily living supports, employment supports, services, what we would call services, those are typically funded by Medicaid through what's called Medicaid waivers. And so because Medicaid is administered at the state level, each state has one or more of these Medicaid waiver programs with different sets of eligibility criteria. And those can provide financial support in the sense of paying for services that the person will need in their adult life.
Neil, I'd be interested in your perspective as an advisor who's been in the space for a while. What's your understanding of where families can go to get support in this area?
Sure. So every state has an organization, a nonprofit that is designed to support, people with disabilities and parents with kind of the maze of benefit opportunities. Here in my state, it's called the Utah Parent Center, but there's at least one in every state, sometimes more. And those are great resources for people who are just getting started, because these are people who are experts and specialists. Oftentimes they are people who are within the disability community themselves. So that would be like a number one resource, is find your state-based parent and education and training center. Of course, there are, resources online, books that can be read, but as far as person-to-person support, it's those training and education centers that are nonprofits in each state.
Todd, as we were preparing for this interview, you mentioned that this industry is very much dominated by the insurance industry, and I'd be interested in your perspective around that.
I think that there's a potential sale there in a solution to problems that, it becomes, and a lot of times insurance is a necessary solution for people as a hedge to a portfolio or just some guarantee of income for later down the road. And it just fits into the plan. So insurance is a tool that needs to be used, and it can be sold as the solution, not in totality. So I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of things come across my desk where people had put on policies that were sold to them for that purpose. And so they sell it as the solution. And a lot of times it's just not, when I first got into this, that was my main focus. How can these people be doing something like this? How could you, and I've taken the course, and I'm a chartered special needs consultant with the American School of, I think that's sponsored by Mass Mutual. And so I took their stuff because I just kind of wanted to understand what they do and how they do it. And they try to do what we do, but there's always that conflict there that's like, well, they're going to sell you something, because if they don't sell you that thing, then there's nothing there to do. And so when I first got in here, that, TIAA-CREF had a great policy that worked great. It was a survivorship. It had very little fees, this, that, and the other. And now that's since gone, and we don't really have a lot of those outlets anymore, which is kind of depressing. But, so it's, helping people understand things without having that as the only tool to solve the solution, or just coming at it from a different perspective and integrating everything, and then not having that be the focal point. Because I think that there are plenty of good people out there that are insurance people that are focused only on insurance, that do a great job in this space. But then there's also, as with anything, there are people who I think of as more predatory than they are. I don't think they may not know better, that they're not being as helpful as they could. People can justify how much money they make on their policies in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that answered the question, but hopefully.
Yeah. Matt, do you have any comments on that?
I think Todd was right there. It's not so much that people are predatory. It's either they're unaware of maybe the different aspects that go along with the special needs planning. They're maybe focused on, you need to plan for a child. Okay, well, whole life's great because you can build up the cash policy and kind of the typical whole life sale with that. But they don't understand that maybe some of those aspects, back to kind of Alex's and Neil's point, where qualifying for benefits, right? You may accidentally, through some of these policies, knock someone off, a benefit program because of that. And they don't understand those intricacies to it. And, I think we can all agree that insurance is not inherently wrong as a piece of the overall plan. But as Todd said, kind of being the solution is not where we need to go.
Great. Alex, any commentary on that?
I think there are a lot of well-meaning players in this space, and people come into it from a variety of backgrounds. Some people come in with an insurance background. I myself had something of an insurance background along with a broker-dealer background when I came in. But I think to do this process of special needs planning effectively, you need two things. The first is you need a holistic view. So while, as several people have said, insurance may very well be one piece of the picture, or investments, you have to look at the whole picture. This is one aspect of planning where you really have to get down into the weeds and look at the details and look at it comprehensively. You look at the whole family. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that the person, whatever their background, has to really be educated in the very specific rules that apply to people who have disabilities, right? So there's a maze of rules around these benefits, around services that are available at the state level. And in order to offer effective advice, a person needs to know not just solid financial planning or even solid insurance planning, but also these rules and how things need to be configured to make sure that all the resources, public and private, are there for the person when they need them.
Can I jump in real quick?
Please.
I've seen things that come across my desk that seem like that they are the solution. But what you end up finding out is that once the solution has been sold to the person, and this is people who've gotten something, and then they bring it to me and they say, well, I'm trying to review things. Can we review this? And they brought something to you. And then you kind of realize that the person who was helpful at the beginning is no longer there. And so you have this big piece of the puzzle and no one's there. And the rules change every year. I mean, you get cares. I mean, everything changes, everything is just constantly changing. And that's one of the, for me, for families, and I understand why it's there, but the complexity that is involved for someone that could possibly be either, and it may be in their divorce, maybe they're a single parent, they have a lot of things going on just on the special needs side. And so to keep up with all those changes and things like that, and to be able to find some way to do that in a cost-effective way, it's not an easy thing to do. And so I think the way that we've probably, a lot of us have structured ourselves is to be able to do that in a comprehensive manner, but then to still be effectively priced so you can provide ongoing support. And it's not just once the product is placed, then let's move on to the next one.
Great. Neil, I'd love to have you chime in here. As we prepared for this interview, you discussed the way you've kind of adopted a new service model and how you've approached layering this service into your business. How do you kind of frame your services around this niche?
Yeah. So something, that I've noticed over the last 20 years in the industry is there are a lot of firms that are a good fit for a few people, and you have to have a certain amount of income or investments to manage in order to get services. And so with disabilities, inclusion is important. So I thought about, how do we make services accessible, just like we're making the built environment accessible through, the Americans with Disabilities Act and things like that. So I designed services so that we can have a strategy session that just takes care of 1, 2, 3 pressing issues, and that's priced under $1,000. And if someone's income is up to a certain point or assets are up to a certain point, then that strategy session actually starts at $250. And then once the service is offered, the people can choose to pay more if they feel like it was worth it or they can afford it. But ultimately, they have a very low buy-in to get some initial services. So it's accessible to people in all situations. And then, for comprehensive planning, that can be an add-on once this initial session is done. So we don't have to try to bite the whole elephant at once. We can take it piecemeal based on what people have time for, what they have money for. I do comprehensive planning. I do services with or without investment management. There may or may not be a need there. So it's just a flexible menu of services that is designed to help people, whether they need long-term help, short-term help, whether they are very well resourced or not.
Great. Thanks, Neil. Matthew, I'd be interested. That word maze keeps standing out to me that Alex mentioned, of just the amount of kind of additional technical expertise you need. I'm interested, how, as someone who's somewhat recent into launching their firm, how did you build your service model around that to be able to help support that maze?
Yeah, so I think Todd mentioned it, the Chartered Special Needs Consultant. It's a designation that's out there from the American College. I'm in process of that just to learn more about it, building my firm around it. I've thought of, accessibility, that's maybe not service model in the sense of different tiers and different pricing options. But as far as, website or content, I'm very adamant that it's got to be accessible to everyone, right? Because most of the times, we may have a parent with a child who's disabled or has the need, but there are adults out there. There are people out there looking for services for themselves where they have some type of need. So with any content or marketing efforts, I'm trying to make sure that's a factor and that's available to all. From a service model, I try to make sure that if it's a Zoom, I can do a recording of it so they can go back and listen to it if necessary. I'm not as quick as a typer, so I've tried closed captioning. It doesn't work as great. I'm looking into some services. There are services out there where if you do a webinar or you do some type of course series, you can hire someone to do closed captioning. So if that's interest to anyone out there, that's available. Regarding kind of pricing structure and that, I agree with Neil. Having the different tiers, having the availability to make it accessible is key, because a lot of times, the assets may be somewhere else because of all the different programs. You can't really factor that in too much. So offering a flat fee, a subscription model, Neil's idea of kind of the tiered intro is a great way to do it.
Yeah. Alex, what kind of services do you offer?
So I have encountered my potential clients have encountered some of the same hurdles that have been mentioned here. Sometimes people who have a family member with a disability have less investable or portable assets than others, because they often have a much higher level of expense. So although I do have the capacity to manage money, that's not what I do for most of my clients. And I do offer flat fee financial planning that is totally independent of asset management in 3 levels. So there's sort of a small, medium, and large, so that people that just need to get started can start off with something that's more affordable. I also don't require the subscription to continue indefinitely. So if a family wants me to help them create their plan, get things basically moving, then we can do that, and we can stop the subscription for the comprehensive planning when that's accomplished and transition them to an as-needed hourly model. I also do have an hourly fee so that people that come and just want to tackle one particular issue can do that. And finally, sort of outside of the RIA world, I actually started or launched a second LLC that provides consulting only on the Social Security and Medicaid benefits, so that if a person is only in the space where they want to tackle that piece of the puzzle, they can do that again on an hourly and a much smaller scale.
Thanks. Todd, how about you?
My business is grown to where I'm not as niche focused as some, because of my location and the population base and the structuring just of special need, or how sometimes it's more localized. So the pricing structure is very similar to what they were talking about. If somebody calls me with special needs, I probably just help them. I mean, I'll help everybody that calls me, and I try to go out of my way to do whatever it is. If it looks like they're in a financial situation where, there's something that it would be painful for them to pay me, then I'll just do it as pro bono. And then so they're just different tiers from there as far as what's needed. And then I'm very similar to Alexandra where I like to do enough to where we or get the plan going, get whatever needs to be established. And then at that point, if they need to come back, if they have questions about the plan, or if they have questions as time progresses that we can work on an hourly, they've spent enough time with me at that point where they don't need to be paying me ongoing. But I know enough about them so that when they do come back 2 years later with a question or needs for updates, then we know each other, and I know, we have notes and we have things like that. So then I can charge a lower hourly fee, but it's usually just a slight, I'm going to say it's based on assets and income retainer, that first year. And then, and so it could be as little as $50 a month. I have a client that's been with me at that rate since I started. And we've done some great things. They've bought another investment property, and they're starting to set up a home for there's lots of different things that go on. It just depends on how much you need at the time. So, but I try to be flexible with that.
Yeah. I'm hearing from a lot of you that a lot of this varies state to state. And Alex, I'd be interested in how do you handle that state to state difference? Do you really focus on folks in Illinois? Or are you able to really impact folks outside of that state?
I would say more of my clients are in Illinois, but increasingly I'm working across state lines. That's either because of referrals or because someone has found me through my website, or found me through XYPN or through NAPFA. I try to be careful when I work across state lines so that I take time. So if I'm contacted by a prospect from another state, if it's a state that I've worked in before and I have a fair sense of how the system operates, then we're good to go. If not, then I do some initial assessments. I do some research on the state's Medicaid system and see if there's enough resources there that I feel like I can help the person confidently. I even try to sometimes reach out to some of the local agencies in that state to make sure that I have people that I can get in contact with to help me guide the family down the right direction. What I have found, though, as I've worked across state lines a bit, is that while every state has its own very particular configuration of Medicaid waiver funded programs, there are similarities and parallels. So each one is not a totally unique set of rules. Once you get into the sort of the mindset, I generally can have a sense of where to go. And for example, almost every state has a program of Medicaid for workers. And the rules there tend to be more expansive than the typical Medicaid rules. And so if I'm dealing with a situation of a person with a disability who works, that would be something that I'd be able to help them tap into.
Thanks. Neil, I just get the sense that you all as financial advisors play an even bigger role to your clients in this regard, in this space. And my mind keeps going to places of kind of your centers of influence as your professional referral network. If you're going to enter into this space, what kind of professional referrals do you like to have for your clients?
Well, first and foremost is going to be some legal resources, attorneys that can handle any legal issues such as special needs trusts, guardianship issues potentially. So that would be number one. Number two, as was mentioned earlier, there is often a need where life insurance can play a role. And since I don't sell life insurance, having places that I can refer for life insurance fulfillment is helpful. So those would be the from a professional standpoint. I mean, accountants, who are well versed in trust, trust law and trust taxes can be important. So similar, I guess, types of professional contacts as non-special needs. It's just that in the legal world, there are specialized attorneys that are in this space, and those can be great resources.
Matt, from your perspective, what have you really had to build in terms of your network to be able to effectively serve this niche?
Yeah, so I think Neil hit it on the head, that the attorneys are a key aspect, especially if you're a new parent and you're just kind of entering this world, right? Getting that set up, depending on where you're at in kind of your journey. A lot of times if your child is ready to go to school, part of the process may involve suing the school district to get the benefits they need. There are attorneys that specialize in that kind of process. Maybe it's a speech pathologist or a specialist of some type. I've been really kind of focused on building a network of specialists and building a library of resources for this kind of stuff. If it's someone with a physical disability, do they need a specialized vehicle? There's a whole different route you can go with this outside of kind of the attorney, accountant professionals, really depending on what the need may be. There's resources you can provide for if there's other siblings involved, right? To where they feel heard, they don't get lost within kind of the bigger picture. Also, fellow parent groups, just trying to understand what else is out there, other resources outside of kind of the professional aspect, because I think we can all agree this is a very emotional aspect to planning where it's typically more of a focus than maybe normally.
Yeah. Todd, what are your thoughts on that?
I have a relationship with the local tax attorney, and she also focuses on special needs. And so her children and my children go to the same school, which is an autism focused school. And we've actually set up a transition center where we're transitioning people from that school to adulthood and jobs and that sort of thing. And so locally, I've just built up specialists that were more in the legal field, I guess, that are focused on this on a regular basis. And then, also a member of the Academy of Special Needs Planners, which I think is a very important thing as well, because that's a group of, attorneys and financial planners like ourselves and across the country. And there's just a vast amount of knowledge that they have that, the listserv there in general is just reading the questions that can come up and all of the different topics that can come up. You'd be amazed at how many different things, and no one can know everything, right? But there's so much there. So for me, I just wanted to cast a wide net to make sure that I was able to get to as much important information. And if I did not have the expertise, that I was able to connect with people. So having that group and then the group that I have locally, to me, has just been really, really helpful to ensure that, when I give an answer, that I know that I feel really comfortable with it and I'm adding value.
Great. Matt, I'm interested in how you've marketed to this group. I imagine that this group are folks that are looking for assistance and being able to navigate that maze. Have you found this to be a marketable niche for you? And if so, have you tailored your marketing directly to them?
So obviously I'm still very early in this process. So it's all kind of to be determined, right? I have some marketing efforts where, from what I found, a lot of the community kind of lives online. It's Instagram, Facebook. You have the different groups. Todd mentioned his kind of local group and his local network there. And I've found the same in kind of talking to some of these individuals where it's very communal. So kind of trying to tap into some of that and, making sure my marketing speaks to them and say, hey, look, I understand your needs. I understand kind of what you're going through with some of the terminology. I think Alex referenced it earlier. Some of the definitions from the IRS, the Social Security Administration, that you have to understand when doing, special needs planning can be confusing. So I've made it a focus of my marketing to kind of talk to that, speak to that. I'm still very early in it. So we'll see if the fruits of the labor bear fruit.
Wonderful. Neil, how about you? Have you seen this community be a source of internal referrals for you?
I've found once you work with somebody that, they know lots of people in the community as well. And they can be a source of referrals like, hey, here's somebody who's speaking specifically to our audience. So yeah, that can be helpful. I'm not great at marketing. I'm still experimenting with things, But everywhere I have, written content, I'm always trying to reference, the disability community and how such and such a topic relates to them. Blogging website is directed and speaking specifically to the special needs and disability community. Bios, profiles out in various places on the web lead with that. So that's what I'm finding. Also, just natural networking, the people that I run into every day, just sharing what I do, since I'm already kind of in the community, is helpful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, how about you? Have you been able to market successfully to this niche?
I found that my most effective method of outreach, and I won't necessarily say marketing, is to give workshops. So before COVID, I was doing physical workshops. I tried to connect particularly with school districts and special needs cooperatives. I found that a pivotal age is when the students are in a period called transition, which technically runs from 14 and a half to just before the student's 22nd birthday. And at that point in their school careers, and some states, I think it goes up to 26, but most it's before 22. At that point in their school careers, the role of the school is to help the student as much as possible position him or herself for a successful adult life. And part of that is helping to educate the student on what services and supports will be available once the student exits the school system. And so if I can connect with those transition teams, I can assist them by providing the information on benefits and Medicaid waiver and things like that, which are a key part of establishing that secure adult life, which often it's not the purview of the school. So they often appreciate having someone come in to help with that. Since COVID, I've been doing virtual workshops, and I think it's pretty much the best way is to share with parents a little bit of what I know so they can make a decision about how effective it would be for us to work together.
Todd, what have you found successful?
Oh, goodness. I've tried everything. I feel like I have at least. I've advertised with different publications that are focused on special needs. Those have never worked. They cost money. They were not good investments. So I've made some mistakes along the way. And then, I think my best has been just doing the work, getting out in my community, meeting people and then serving people and then referring people that refer me later and say, well, I worked with Todd. And so that's been kind of the best way, but that's not really marketing. That's kind of like just doing the work. And so there's not really that wasn't a fast path per se. I started off with basically trying to focus on inbound and SEO and that in trying to, and from advertising, Facebook ads, everything you could think of. I've done a little bit of everything. And it's one of the funny things about it for me, at least, is that I learned that everything worked a little bit, but nothing was the golden, there was no silver bullet that was going to solve it. And so what I learned after the first couple of years is I stopped investing my capital as much, and I started just doing the work and reaching out to people and networking a little bit more, that sort of thing. And like I said, just referrals is I would say is the largest. And then I have some other. I'm out and about. I'm like I said, Academy of Special Needs Planners, NAP, all those types of places where you get found as well. And so those have been great for me. And I was relatively new to this industry. I shouldn't say new to the industry. I've been in finance since the 90s, early 90s. I wasn't into financial planning, personal financial planning up until 2016. So from a marketing perspective, it was a little new to me at the time. So like I said, I tried just about everything. So I can tell you what doesn't work. I'm not sure I could tell you what the silver bullet is on what does work, other than just doing great work for people.
Absolutely. Well, if you can believe it, we are approaching nearly the end of this episode. I feel like we should have made a double episode to have all this conversation. But Neil, I'd be interested from you speaking directly to the listeners who maybe are interested in one day or maybe pivoting currently their firm into this space. Any final pieces of advice you have for approaching this community, this service, and the support they offer?
Yeah, I would say that if you feel like you have a compassionate, empathetic heart, caring individual, I think you could do well here. There's certainly plenty of need throughout the country, very underserved group of people on an underserved specialty, to just be very sensitive about the community is close-knit and there's trust there, and to not abuse that trust and just be sincere, and you'll be able to make a difference.
Beautiful advice. Todd, how about you?
I think just speaking what he said, you have to be able to speak the language and have compassion for who you're talking to. And to me, you kind of have to be in it, not for the money to some degree, because there's a lot of need. And, I have a lot of, and that's why I was saying when I started the business, I was trying to focus just on the niche. And because of geographic areas and because of my population, there's a lot of things that made me realize that I needed to probably be open to other things that could help me fund pro bono work. And so I came from asset management, and I have a lot of experience there. So people, I have people that come to me for that. And so it's been very helpful for me to take on some retirees with portfolios they'd like to offset to me. And I like to think of that as, I get to use that as another person that I get to take that doesn't really pay me. And so that's just my particular need. But I don't think that anything should stop you from wanting to attack this problem, because it's definitely a problem that needs to be solved. And however you can survive and be profitable and help people make better choices and more deliberate choices with their money and how they plan for their children's future, giving them the peace of mind that there is a path and there is a solution, and it's just a process that takes time to complete.
Awesome. Matt, how about you? Any final pieces of advice for our listeners?
So I think Neil and Todd, alluded to it. Be authentic. These communities can easily sniff out if you're not there for the right reasons. You have to be there to truly help, truly want to serve. With that, if you're interested in getting involved in those communities, I would suggest starting with pro bono planning. That's how I did it. It gives you exposure to it, gives you an opportunity to kind of get more experience dealing with the issues they face and understanding it, as well as, Todd mentioned the pressure of profits, right? You don't have that pressure so much with pro bono planning. It's kind of a dual benefit for you where you get the exposure without that pressure, but you're also helping in the meantime.
Wonderful. And Alex, how about you?
So I would welcome anyone who, again, authentically comes into this space with a desire to help. I would also caution that it's just a heck of a lot of work, because to a greater degree than pretty much any other specialization that I can think of, it requires constant continuing education beyond just keeping yourself updated on tax law changes or investment changes or bills that go through Congress, because so many factors could change. Social Security, as someone mentioned, is constantly updating and changing. The situation of disability supports in every state is constantly changing. And so to really be committed to do the work, and maybe to do it in unconventional ways, to find your information in unconventional ways, because with all due respect to the American College, and it is a great program, it's only the beginning, right? And then as you're discovering, I'm sure there's a lot of very specialized learning that you have to take on from there.
Wow. I've learned a lot today. And I am very, very, very honored and thankful for each of you to be on our show with each other today. I guarantee the listeners are going to be very interested in what you have to share. And thank you all so much for carving out some time to talk on XYPN Radio.
Thank you.
Great being here. Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you. Thanks, Maddie.
Avocado toast, selfies, a mountain of student loan debt. Gen Y is anything but traditional, and with over 75 million people, it's a population you don't want to ignore. Learn more about how to serve this unique population in our guide called Attract and Profitably Serve Millennial Clients in Your RIA. Discover 3 key ways to tap into the millennial market and 6 things that they want from their financial advisor. Visit xyplanningnetwork.com/millennials for your free copy. Be sure to join our VIP community at xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes, and finally, to find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You are not alone and you are not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm, and that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.